This video, we're going to talk about the 10 myths versus reality about the United States Army. Myth number 1, soldiers are always in combat. Reality is no, especially now that we're not in a time of war. There is conflict around the world, but today's day and age, a lot of soldiers growing up in ranks never been deployed any longer because the conflict that we were in the Middle East back in the day where we are directly engaged is no longer happening. The other thing is that when you do join the army, there's only a handful combat MOS. Now, just because you don't have a combat MOS doesn't mean you're not going to combat. You possibly can, because the reality is every combat unit requires support MOS. For example, an infantry unit needs medics. They need communications. So it really depends sometimes on what unit you get assigned to. Now, your job doesn't change. Your job is still the same when you are part of that unit. However, the likelihood of you going into combat, it really depends on which unit you're assigned to and the rotation of that unit for deployment. For example, now, even though there's not an active war going on, there's still conflict around the world, and these units still deploy, still go to different places around the globe. Now, they don't deploy there without support. They're always going to need support. Myth number 2, basic combat training, also known as boot camp, is all about physical. The reality is it's not. Most people that quit basic combat training is about your mental toughness. It's because some people can't let go of their past lives, and some people also get very, very extreme homesick because they miss their family, they miss their girlfriends and boyfriends. But for the most part, the physical is not really that tough because the basic combat training is designed to improve any level of physical fitness from entry. However, some people are well prepared or better prepared, perform a lot better, or it becomes easier for them to do certain tasks in basic combat training. That's the reality. Myth number 3, soldiers get free college without any requirements. The reality is there are requirements. I'm going to give you a few examples on this one. Let's say tuition assistance. Your tuition assistance gets you free college while you're in the service. Now, it comes with the requirements. Number 1, you can't be flagged. You can't be in trouble. You can't be in any negative action right now before your commander can approve your tuition assistance. Number 2, when you do go to college, you have to balance your time. Cannot impede with your current job. For example, you're using your tuition assistance not on online classes, but on local community college. They have to look at your schedule, your class schedule. Now, if that's okay, then the commander would bless off on it. But there are some times that you're going to have to be asked to go to the field or something, and it conflicts with your schedule in college. This is the conversation that you have to have with your professor, not with your commander. For the GI Bill. GI Bill is really your education benefits that you use typically after your service in the military, go back to college. You can't get your GI Bill if you got out on a bad terms with the Army. You have to have an honorable discharge to be able to keep your benefits. If not, you're not going to get them. Myth number 4, the Army is just for those people who are rough and tough. Far from the truth. The reality is there's so much more technical jobs available in the Army, which is needed to be filled compared to just rough and tough jobs. Now, don't get me wrong. Even the rough and tough jobs need people that are intelligent, that are also highly motivated and very technical, because the price to pay could be life and death. The Army needs all talents to be able to function effectively and maintain its military might in the world. Myth number 5, this is a good one, that if you join the Army, you lose all personal freedom. The reality is it's like a regular job. It's like 9 to 5. The biggest difference is you are required to do physical training. Unit might dictate different times and different ways of training, but nevertheless, PT has to happen every day. Organized PT, we call it, are only designed to maintain your fitness level. For you to be able to improve, you got to do PT on your own. However, you don't lose your freedom. After you get off at 1700, you do whatever you want to do, like any other job. You go home, do your hobbies. And then for the most part, the Army has 4-day weekends. Every federal holiday is a 4-day weekend, unless you're part of the unit that is required to conduct some jobs during those holidays, like recruiting, for example. You will get a lot more time off than your typical 9 to 5. And during that time that you're off, it's your time. Myth number 6, soldiers are always in uniform. Reality is, once you're off, you're off. There are also regulations telling you not to be in uniform. For example, you can't be going to the mall and browsing different shops and taking hours to buy something. The doctrine, and it's not a doctrine, it's the regulation. It tells you quick shopping, like grocery shopping, getting dinner for the night. You can't be in uniform. Other than that, you're only required to be in uniform if you're on duty. Myth number 7, military are unable to adjust to the civilian life. Reality is, so many programs out there that is dedicated to soldier transition. When you do get out, whether you're retiring or you're just finishing your contract in the Army, there are internships where you actually be an intern on a specific civilian company. And there are also classes like resume building, a lot of different counselings in preparation for you to get out to the civilian world once your enlistment term is up or you're about to retire. Now, my reality, I don't know yet. I'll let you know in about 3 years. Myth number 8, the Army uses outdated technology. The truth is, the Army is in the forefront of the technological advancement in America. You might not see it in your unit right away because it involves a very complicated process to field to all the units in the Army. Most of the cool units or the cool gadgets that you're gonna be hearing about in the news are first fielded to those units that are actually engaged in operations that need it right now. For example, special operations or maybe the airborne units. Sometimes recruiting will get technological advancement before the rest of the Army does. But for the most part, every year, the Army is one of the biggest spender when it comes to research and development. Myth number 9, women cannot serve in combat roles. Well, this is the easy one because the reality is every single unit in the Army, in fact, let me get back, every single job, MOS in the Army are now open to females. You can go SF, you can go Rangers. It's all equal opportunity for males and females in the Army. That's the reality. Last one, myth number 10. Basic combat training is the hardest part in the Army. Reality is, basic combat training can be the hardest part in the Army if you don't do anything else outside of that. Because all the other training that will challenge and develop you, for the most part, they're optional. It's because you signed up for it. You don't have to go to airborne school or ranger school if you didn't sign up for it, for the most part. Because as you progress in the Army, if you're satisfied where you at, if let's say you're a support MOS, the only way for you to be able to challenge yourself into going to a challenging school, for example, airborne school, ranger school, all that, 2 things has to happen. Number 1, your next duty station, or you're getting assigned to a unit that is a ranger unit or an airborne unit. For the most part, you have to be willing to volunteer. Keep in mind, volunteer to go to the schools for them to accept you in their unit. Now, do you have to go? Absolutely not. Would it affect some of the assignment instructions that you're going to get? Probably. But for the most part, the reality is basic combat training is just the beginning. That's it. Those are the 10 myths versus reality in the Army. I would love to hear your comments, especially for those of you who actually done some of these things in the Army. Put in a comment below. And if I'm wrong about some stuff, please, I got a thick skin. Put in the comments too. That being said, stay new so you can learn a lot more. I'll catch you in the next video. This is the High Speed FNG.